Welcome back to this new Creepy News episode. Today we're gonna go over the case of Michael Carson and Suzan Carson. They were essentially witch hunters, at least that's what they assumed themselves to be. But of course, they were a little twisted, a little crazy, so they ended up murdering a bunch of innocent people that obviously didn't deserve to lose their lives. So today we're gonna go over the details they have documented here on Wikipedia and Murderpedia. So yes, I'll just be narrating evidence that they portrayed there so that you can enjoy this story for yourself, if that's what you actually do, I don't know. But for some reason you clicked on this video, so here we gonna go. On Murderpedia, they describe the following information concerning Michael Carson, although he also went by the name James Clifford Carson. Now apparently he and Suzan were involved in a counterculture movement, and their crimes emerged from a shared missionary philosophy to exterminate individuals they believed to be witches. The pair reportedly kept a list of targeted individuals, including celebrities and political figures such as Johnny Carson and then President Ronald Reagan. Now that's already pretty messed up. Let's just put this in perspective. They thought certain people were witches. This happened throughout all of history in general with witch hunts and stuff like that. So it's kind of unique to see it happen in this day and age. Regardless, I highly doubt that these people that are talking about were actually witches, because let's be honest, witches are nice people as well. Witch lives matters, you know? That should be a slogan to counteract these crazy people out there that are still after these innocent, wonderful witches of ours. Now let's switch to Wikipedia for a second here, because they have a few other elements documented concerning his background and the one of Suzan. Now over there they wrote that in 1977, James, aka Michael, was in Phoenix, Arizona, when his first wife noticed severe behavioral changes and left with their daughter, Jennifer. Carson began a relationship with Suzan Barnes, a divorcee with two teenage sons. James and Suzan married, and that marriage ended up going down a rabbit hole into total insanity because they became involved in illicit drugs and mysticism. Now mysticism on its own is not something bad, but the illicit drugs, be careful when using drugs, okay? Trust me, I know. From personal experience. I've been sober for a couple months now. I can tell you that life is a lot better. At least you don't end up going on witch hunts, because I was close of going on one myself. At some point, Carson took the name Michael Bear, telling his daughter in a letter that God had given him the new name Michael. Suzan became known as Suzan Bear. Now by 1980 they wrote that after a year-long trip to Europe, the Carsons returned to the United States and moved into a neighborhood of San Francisco, California, where they continued their involvement with drugs and the counterculture. By this time, Michael's former wife had become afraid that it would harm her and tried to abduct their child, and took steps to hide herself and the child from him. She went so far as to move numerous times and cut off contact with mutual acquaintances. Now this Michael here sounds like a very nice father figure, doesn't he? If your former wife is even afraid of you and takes your child away, that must be telling you something about this guy's mentality and behavior. Of course, his murder spree ended up showcasing us just exactly how crazy he really was. So it probably was a good thing that his former wife and child left his sight. You never know what else would have happened. Crazy things can occur. Now on Wikipedia they have the victims of these two perpetrators set at the number 3+. So of course it means that there might be more murders than just 3, but I guess they have 3 documented officially, and this is what they wrote about the cases. In March 1981, 23-year-old Karen Barnes, an aspiring actress from Georgia who had been the Carsons' roommate in San Francisco, was found dead in their shared apartment. She had been stabbed 13 times and her skull crushed before being wrapped in a blanket and hidden in the basement. Evidence suggested that Karen had been killed by someone she knew, and the Carsons became the prime suspects. However, the family disappeared before the body was found. The Carsons later confessed to killing Karen after Suzan had decided Karen was a witch. Now this is a pattern you're gonna hear about concerning these cases, is that Every time if they come across a person, if they were to come across you or me, they might just randomly say, hey, you're a witch and therefore you need to die. And that's exactly what they would do to you. It's kinda crazy, isn't it? Now, after this first murder of theirs, they fled to a mountain hideout near Grants Pass, Oregon, where they remained until spring 1982. They then moved to Alder Point, California, where they lived and worked on a marijuana farm. According to other workers on the farm, the Carsons were anarchists who advocated revolution and predicted that a nuclear apocalypse would soon occur. There you go, nuclear apocalypse, right? It reminds me of some of those cults that we've shared in the past, or at least it was on my old channel, to be really honest. I don't have the videos anymore, but over there we would share cases about cults that always thought the end was near, nuclear apocalypse, alien invasion, everything, and then therefore they had to either kill a bunch of people and take their lives, or just simply take their own lives, all because of being so afraid of what's about to come on this planet. This paranoia can lead people into strange behavior, so that must have fed into their decisions of murdering actual other people. If you think there's a nuclear apocalypse about to occur, then at the same time, in a twisted way, you could reason it doesn't really matter if you take someone's life after all, because a nuclear apocalypse is gonna occur in a bit. You see how twisted that reasoning is? But that's sort of what they operated from, if you think about it. Now, they went on to say that in May 1982, Michael shot and killed Clark Stevens, a worker on the farm with whom he had a dispute, and attempted to dispose of the body by burning it and burying it under chicken fertilizer in the woods. 2 weeks later, Stevens was reported missing to the Humboldt County Sheriff, leading to the discovery of his burned remains. The Carsons, who by this point had fled, were again considered suspects. Upon searching their abandoned belongings, detectives found a manifesto they had written which called for the assassination of then President Ronald Reagan. However, authorities had difficulty tracking down the Carsons over the coming years. In November 1982, Michael was picked up by police in Los Angeles after an acquaintance saw him hitchhiking. However, through a police error, Carson was quickly freed and vanished before Humboldt County detectives had a chance to question him. He left evidence behind, including a mugshot, address information, and a gun left in a police car. The following January, the Carsons were hitchhiking near Bakersfield and were given a ride by 30-year-old John Charles Hellier, who was driving to Santa Rosa. Suzan reportedly decided that he was a witch and had to be killed. Yay, good on you, Suzan. You surely seem like a sane person. Now, while he was driving on US Route 101 in Santa Mona County, an argument and physical fight broke out between them, resulting in the car coming to a stop. It escalated outside the vehicle and Suzan stabbed him while he and Michael struggled over a gun. Michael got control of the gun and killed him, in view of passing motorists, one of whom contacted police. Now, bravo for that, although I think it's only natural, but then again, maybe it's not that common in America, I don't know. Shootings over there occur so much more often in general. But the fact that this guy actually contacted the police helped catch these weirdos. And you see, if they didn't notice that, they might have gotten away with it, and this is their downfall. This is where they had to stop hunting witches and start preparing their ass, because if they dropped the soap, maybe somebody would do some weird stuff to them over there. I don't know. I haven't yet actually interviewed anyone personally to verify these claims of prison. You know what I mean. Then I have some information concerning the confessions and aftermath on Wikipedia that I wanted to narrate for you, and it simply stated the following. The Carsons initially called a press conference to confess to the murders of these three people we just covered. Now, before trial, they withdrew their confessions and entered pleas of not guilty. On June 12, 1984, the Carsons were convicted first of Barnes' murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison. Later, they were convicted of the murder of Stevens and Hellier, for which they received sentences of 50 years to life and 75 years to life, respectively. In 1989, the First District Court of Appeal affirmed their third conviction, as it had previously done on the other two convictions. Now Michael's incarcerated in Mule Creek State Prison and Suzan at the Central California Women's Facility. In a 5-hour interview with KGO-TV and the San Francisco Chronicle, as well as homicide investigators, the Carsons claim to have been pacifists and vegetarian yoga practitioners who converted to a form of Islam and described themselves as vegetarian Muslim warriors. Their crimes emerged from a shared mission to exterminate individuals they believed to be witches. Consequently, the press dubbed them the San Francisco Witch Killers. You know what a good idea would be is if we dub them and consider them witches, and give them the same sort of treatment they gave these other people. In fact, now that I think of it, it only makes me more and more excited to crash into that building and just go haywire. They stated they killed Barnes because they believed she had made a false conversion to their religion and was draining Miss Carson of her health and yogic powers. Their justification for the second and third killings were that Stephens had allegedly sexually assaulted Suzan and that Hellier had allegedly called her a witch and sexually abused her. From their conviction through their incarceration up to 2017, they have shown no remorse for their crimes. They claim they have traveled through Europe and back in the United States to the American Southwest and parts of California. The pair said they kept a list of targeted individuals, including those political figures and celebrities. According to Richard D. Reynolds, who wrote a book about the case, the Carsons were suspects in nearly a dozen other deaths in the US and Europe. So this is why their official victim number is perhaps and literally unknown. They only have these 3, right? 3 too many already. Imagine how much more it could be, especially if they were in Europe. It might have been possible for them to go crazy over here in the continent where I live and actually get away with it because they were fairly far away from where they normally live, which can technically make it easier to commit such heinous crimes. But hey, that's not a suggestion for any of you aspiring serial killers out there, because if you do such a thing you'll end up on my channel if you don't watch out. Maybe that's what you want. Regardless, I don't suggest you go about it in that manner. These people were all absolute crazy monsters. Society is better off without them, because they can't control themselves at all. They are very dangerous to have them walk around. To be very careful out there, especially during these crazy times of a pandemic. Well, that's about all they had on these articles that I wanted to share with you today through this video. And I'll probably be back with more content very soon. I have been a little absent, I know, for a couple months. But I'm trying to get back on track. But I'm also busy working on other stuff. So life gets a little hectic and crazy. But at the end of the day, that's a good thing. I prefer a crazy life over a mundane, boring existence after all. Now that I got all of that out of the way, remember the wise words of myself. As always, dear viewer, have sweet dreams.